Here now. Yeah, we're just getting started, and some of you probably looked at the calendar and saw the title of the program tonight, Setting Good in Motion. And it's actually, in some ways, a provocative title in a Buddhist sense, because, we're taught a lot from the Buddhist teachings not to get attached and just to let things be. And then somebody puts in a title, but let's set good in motion. And you might have noticed, some greed, I want to set good in motion. And there's a lot of this in the wider spiritual world and New Age world about aspiration and intention. And, if I have the right attitude, I can attract wealth, attract the right kind of people to me, health, or whatever it is that we might want it sort of to draw to us. And it can be just a more refined way to be greedy and to set up betrayal and disappointment and all that comes when we're greedy. But in our practice, which is just training, cultivating a heart that can be present, can be intimate, can be right in the middle. Like I said, people weren't connected during the guided sit. One of the early instructions in the guided sit tonight was, can we be real with the way it is? And if we do that, if we cultivate that value and learn a thing or two about being open, being real, being connected, then there unavoidably an insight will dawn on the mind. And this isn't a small thing. And when I say what that insight is, a lot of us are going to say, oh yeah, I know that. Well, we do kind of know it intellectually, but when we really know it intuitively in our bones, then it changes how we are in the world. And in a way, it's waking up to the law. And this law is impersonal, but it's real. And, there are different ways we talk about it. And some of you who've done a little study probably are guessing that I'm going to mention karma, which, by the way, is often misunderstood here in the West. But this seeing of how things work isn't something that we figure out cognitively. It's something we observe directly, just being present. And being present in a way where we don't have an agenda except wanting to connect with the way it is. And the law, capital L-A-W, because it's life-changing, is that it matters. It matters what this mind is doing. It matters how the mind is relating. And it's not like a proclamation that's coming from above, Santa Claus or some divinity telling us, you better behave. We actually observe it directly. In Buddhism, morality arises independently in our own heart. We can, if we're present, directly sense what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're saying. We can directly sense its wholesomeness or unwholesomeness. Doesn't mean we are sensing it. We'd probably have a different world if we were sensing it, right? The terribleness and injustice and exploitation in our world, in our personal lives and in our wider world, it arises not because people are evil necessarily, but because people haven't cultivated the sensitivity that would make it really obvious to them directly that this isn't helpful. It isn't for my own well-being, and it isn't for the well-being of others. And one of the signs that we haven't had this insight yet is when we think that what's for my well-being contradicts what's for the well-being of the whole. It's like there's a competition. And what arises with more careful sensitivity is that what's for my well-being is for the well-being of all. And again, it's not something for us to believe in, it's something for us to check out. And, it's really okay. It's actually good to be honest about this, that we may, like part of the pattern that may be dominating our minds is we don't really want to have that insight that it matters, that we could learn how to plant seeds for real happiness and well-being for ourselves and others. Because all of a sudden we'd feel obliged to be a different kind of human being. But because we think it doesn't matter, or it's random, or we don't actually confess to ourselves the way we think it all works. But if we, put ourselves in a corner and demand and the way we figure this out is we observe how we're behaving. And then we extrapolate from the choices we make, the way the mind is operating, the kind of thoughts we think and kind of things we say and the stuff we do. Then we extrapolate what is the operating view in the mind. And either it's a kind of nihilistic, it doesn't really matter what we do, so we might as well take what we can get, or everybody else is doing it. It's all random. But when we start to see that it matters not only for my own well-being, but I'm participating in the well-being of everybody else, then from our normal kind of egoic point of view, then it feels a little heavy. Oh, now I have to be good. It's actually, if you do bad stuff, it's better to know you're doing bad stuff. Sometimes we think, well, I didn't know I was doing bad stuff, but that's even worse. Because we want to be in that place as a human being that we know when we're doing bad stuff and we know when we're doing good stuff. Because that's how this whole distillation process, like where we're distilling the underlying lawfulness. How do I plant seeds for happiness in any moment? And it isn't really dependent. Like we could be having the worst moment of our life in terms of the external circumstances, whatever that might be, losing a job, terrible breakup, some kind of betrayal or whatever, those really difficult moments that happen for us. But isn't it possible? Can't we imagine that the way our mind might be showing up in that really difficult moment could be planting beautiful, wholesome seeds that are onward leading to freedom? Like just acknowledging to ourselves, this is a really difficult moment, is a wholesome way to be relating. I care about how painful this is for me. And because I care how painful this is for me, the last thing I want to do is to be relating and reacting or responding to this in a way that causes me or anybody unnecessary suffering. What I'd really like to do, even though this moment is unbearable for me right now, what I'd really like to do is be relating, showing up, responding in a way that's planting seeds that are onward leading to happiness and peace and release and freedom and well-being, right? So why don't we do that? Well, we basically, I think, generally, each of us in our own particular ways, we're telling ourselves a story of helplessness. Like, either there's no way to set happiness in motion, real happiness, real peace in motion, or I don't know the way, somebody's keeping it secret, nobody's telling me the way, or it's just like God's messing with us, or something like that, like it's a real setup. It's a real setup. And we should be angry about it or upset, like how we've been set up. And what the Buddha might say is, well, why don't you train your heart, train your mind to pay attention in that stable, ongoing way to see, to learn for yourself what kind of world we live in. And this is this, in Buddhism, it's considered the initial spiritual insight where no, it doesn't matter what your teachers or your friends say, you know in your bones that whatever the mind is doing, it's leaving an impression. This is what we mean by karma. Anything the mind does, including thinking, speaking, acting, anything the mind does, anything the mind sets in motion, then in the next moment and in the later moments, then that mind stream is the mind that thought that said that did that. Like right now for each of us, this mind that's operating, a mind is this process, this natural process, right, that's unfolding here. This mind, my mind, just like your mind, is the mind that thought all those things. All those things that I thought in the past, they don't exist. Because the past, where's the past? Does it exist somewhere? We sometimes think it does, but there's no past back there. There's just what's continuing right now. But what is continuing right now, is the continuation of every thought, everything I said, every act I did. Then this mind stream, this natural process of my heart unfolding here, is the continuation of that, of all of those cumulative impressions. That's, we say in conventional language, that's who I am. And if we don't like who we are, like there are tendencies we have that make it hard to get along, which is not uncommon for us, right? Then lamenting the past doesn't help because there is no past. There's just this. But what we can do with that motivation is, well, this came to be because of the way the mind related. And, to whatever degree the mind was oblivious to what kind of impressions it was laying down. So how might I be relating, showing up, responding to this moment in a way that would be setting in motion something healing, something good, something onward leading to well-being? And it isn't something, like I said earlier, that we cognitively figure out because we're learning to sense it. I mean, just imagine, you think about all those less than skillful things we've done in our lives, right? A lot of things, right? And some of it were just acts of neglect, not so much something we did, but something perhaps we should have done, should have said, but didn't. But imagine if all the way through this life, not that we did everything right, but imagine that we had developed and really valued a sensitivity. So as we were thinking what we were thinking, as we were saying what we were saying and doing what we were doing, there was this stability of present moment awareness, sensing directly, immediately, feels like this. Being me now, doing what me is doing now, feels like this. Not judging, not trying to control. I'm sure you've heard that, or at least many of you have heard that part of this wisdom and awareness that we're cultivating, the stability of wisdom and awareness, it's like this beautiful, perfect mirror that never judges, but just perfectly reflects, hey, this is how it is. This is what's happening. Like when we're talking to our partners who we love, and if there were just a simple mirroring back the tone of our voice, our body language, our subtle ways of manipulating the situation that we don't even own ourselves. It's like not only manipulating our partners, or a friend, we're manipulating ourselves, as like believing our own lie. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe a couple others, right? But this is how it is for us. But imagine if we had all along, from day one, been encouraged to cultivate this moral sensitivity, which is nothing more than a willingness to be present. I mean, in a sense, we could say sensing, feeling how the heart's doing. But the heart we're not talking about the pump in the middle of our chest, but we're just talking about where is it when we do have some moral sensitivity? Where is it that oh yeah, this isn't good? Or no, this feels really wholesome. As much as I can sense, this feels really good, feels wholesome. And we sense that with others too. It's not our own actions, words, thoughts, actions that we can sense. We sense it imperfectly always for ourselves and for others, but we sense it in others, or especially people we know well. And we'll see, like in our partner and a good friend, a child of ours, and they're doing their thing. But isn't that true? We sense like, oh, they're laying down seeds, they're going to suffer, We sense that. But interestingly, why haven't we really invested in this skill of being morally sensitive? And part of it is, I think, because we've equated it with judgment, judging others, judging ourselves. But we don't just throw out discriminating wisdom because it can be used to judge people. It's like, oh, I'm not really going to pay attention to cause and effect because I might judge somebody. So I'm going to choose to be oblivious to cause and effect my whole life. So it's like operating, blindfolded or ears covered or whatever, In a way, this sensitivity, you may not like the phrase moral sensitivity, but it's really sensing not only the immediate well-being, but what kind of heart or mind is getting set in motion down the road. And like I said, we want to be honest with ourselves about how we may not be that interested, because initially it feels like a heavy obligation to have to then live in allegiance with what life is teaching the heart is helpful and what is unhelpful, what is healthy in that emotional, psychological, spiritual sense, and what's unhealthy. And we feel like the lawfulness of it might be oppressive. I think it was St. Augustine, some of you might know this better than me, but he has a line that gets translated as something like, Lord, make me chaste, but not yet. And I think that captures it to some degree, like, yeah. I mean, we do this like superficially or more superficially with exercise, like, yeah, being a little bit better with my diet and with exercise and the kind of media I consume, I could I could really set something good in motion. I'm going to get to that later, but right now, so what is that about? And it's, we know it and talk about it sometimes as this distortion of what's short term versus what's long term. Yeah, I just want to feel good now. But, and that's, we have to respect that because we do want to feel good now. But being good in this more sensitive way, this integrated and sensitive way, this moral sensitivity, we also feel good, but it's subtle. But in the spiritual work, subtle is actually more significant than gross. So then you really see why in Buddhist practice there's such an emphasis on what we call samadhi, this sensitivity. Because it's actually, we actually can't take care of ourselves and each other unless we're sensitive. So if we're moving through life superficial and not so sensitive and discombobulated and fragmented and our mental energies dissipated, well, then the Buddha says this a number of times in the suttas and the discourses, then we're not able to take care of our own well-being or the well-being of others or the well-being of both. And we see that. When we're observant, we see people who want to be happy, who don't want to cause others unhappiness, doing things that lead to their own unhappiness and the unhappiness of people they love. This is not a very rare thing, right? And we're those people sometimes. We do stupid stuff all the time. So in a way, we want to be able to appropriately scare ourselves. There's actually a word, the Buddha made a big deal. He called this the guardian of the world, guardians of the world. Hiri Ottappa, or the Pali words, Hiri and Ottappa. And it's like wholesome concern and wholesome regret. We want to use that because there is actually a very real danger in life, and that is, superficiality, distractedness, not being interested in this more subtle cause and effect. And it's one of the first things, like if this talk makes a little dent for some of you, then one of the first things you'll start to pick up is all of your mental justifications for superficiality and distractedness and doing the same old, getting the same old results. It's like loving routines, just sticking with the routine, not because it's a good routine, but it's my routine. It's what I know, and this is what I do. And don't tell, it's like we've got this resistance built up as if there's some parent out there wagging their finger at us. But what we're really doing is cultivating our own sensitivity. This is like how our experience, life, is presenting the data of cause and effect. Oh yeah, when you relate in this way, then this gets set in motion. Like when you're constantly stingy with everyone in your life, then this is what happens. When you're domineering, when you're when you're caring, or when you're willing to listen, when you trust humility as opposed to arrogance, then what gets set in motion in our lives? And there are a lot of things that we can't control, like our genetics and all those medical predispositions that each of us have, and body shape, and there's a lot. And then just the play of the world, the external circumstances that are in motion. Like our class, how much education, how much wealth, how much privilege, our racial identity, our sexual gender identities, these are all impactful for us. But what's more impactful than all those important external factors is what we do, how we relate, what we pay attention to. It's not about denying all these external factors, they're playing their cards, right? We have to dance with everything that's showing up in our world. I've found choices. It doesn't mean we don't get involved in changing things that we might be able to change. So it's not about giving up in terms of social change. It's just there's always going to be these external factors, and we tend to give too much weight as if that's the only thing. A long time ago, I was a grad student in educational psychology and child psychology at the University of Minnesota. There's a well-known professor, I think her name was Ann Masden, who did a lot of research on resiliency. And she would look at especially kids growing up in difficult backgrounds, and they have this factor and this factor and this other factor. And then, out of whatever number of children, there would be a couple that would really do okay and maybe even thrive, even though they had all these stress factors in their childhood. And then the question is, well, what is it that allows some people to thrive and others not to thrive? And I'm not saying we do the exact same thing, but in our own life, it's like, okay, this is how it is. This is what's showing up. How can I plant positive seeds when it's like this? So I'm not spending time saying, I wish it weren't like this. No, it is like this. And I'm not saying I won't do stuff to change the external circumstances. I might. If there's something I can do, I'm going to do it. And if I can do something without causing myself or others harm, we should do it. But even so, while doing whatever we're going to do, how can I be planting seeds? And seeds are powerful things. I'm staying at Thea and John's house, and they've got some big oaks in the backyard. And, we all know this, but those massive trees that are producing thousands of acorns arose from a little seed, a little acorn. It's not very big. And then when you think about the one big tree and the thousands of acorns it produces over the course of its life, that one seed can set a lot in motion. I read recently that there are some seeds that are 2,000 years old. I think they're date palm seeds that they found in vessels, stored in some dry climate probably, that they could sprout then 2,000 years later. Seeds are amazing. And this is the image we want to use. The Buddha used it, and it goes both ways. It's not just positive seeds. Negative seeds are really powerful too. And the image the Buddha used, it's really graphic. And when he was talking about the wholesome roots and then the unwholesome roots, the image he used, some of you might be familiar with these tropical vines where a bird will eat the fruit and then poop on a branch of a big tropical hardwood. And then a plant will start to grow right there on the branch. And eventually it will drop roots down. And over a long period of time, that vine will completely encircle not just that one big hardwood tree, but like a couple city blocks worth of the tropical forest. And it will completely encircle. You won't see any of the original tree. It will be completely encircled by the vine over time. So you see this massive tree and you think, boy, that's a big tree. Oh, no, that was just a vine that has this encircling tendency over time. And so when we casually, without much reflection or much sensitivity, justify irritation, justify lust and greed, and justify indifference and complacency, somebody else's responsibility, all that, those kind of, and they're easy. The negative stuff is easy, not because it's actually easier, but because it's the habit of the mind. The groove is already there. It's not any easier being bad than good, planting negative seeds and positive seeds. It just seems easier because it's the habit of the mind to be greedy, to be hateful, to be disconnected. So, it would be dishonest to say, we can just kind of change the dial and just plant positive seeds, because there is something that's real, and that's the force or the momentum of habit in the mind. It's a real thing. It's not personal. That's not you who has those tendencies, that have those tendencies with their momentum. That's not you. That's just the natural process of seeds being planted. That's what happens when a mind relates the way that my mind has related in the past. Then you have the tendencies that this mind has, with the momentum that those tendencies have. It's perfectly lawful and perfectly impersonal. But just because it's impersonal doesn't mean, like, as long as I'm taking my situation personally, I want to personally be invested in reading cause and effect, right? And it's not about studying it in a book, it's about observing. Oh, I've been relating to my partner, those of you who live with a partner or a good friend or whatever, your dog, your cat. I've been relating to my pet in this way the last hour. So how's that working for me? And again, we don't figure it out, we just sense the squeeze, the contraction, the wakefulness. Oh, does it feel good? Okay, so are we gonna have an honest relationship with what we're setting in motion? A lot of the times we just choose distraction. It's like I said earlier, it feels a little too heavy to really want to be just to put it in kind of a somewhat graphic way, to be a devoted student to the law. And the law is just the cumulative data of having the mind relating the way the mind's been relating. Each moment, an impression gets laid down. Each moment my mind is relating in any way it's relating, it's laying down an impression that then becomes the mind that's relating to the next moment. So you see, why that image of encircling vines is so useful. We get ourselves in dark places. It's lawful. When we're in dark places, it's lawful. When we're in really wholesome, light, generous, loving, beautiful places, it's lawful. Now, like I said right at the beginning, practice is meant to become effortless, just nature happening. But we don't want just to keep doing what we've always done and getting what we've always gotten, when what we're getting is a lot of greed, hatred, and delusion, right? So first we have to do what feels initially like hard personal work, because we're countering the force of habit. And the Buddha talks about these in terms of the unwholesome roots: greed, hatred, and delusion. And we're countering them with the wholesome roots. You're not going to be surprised: non-greed, non-hate, and non-delusion, and there's something powerful about keeping it in the negative, but it's totally good also. What is non-greed? Well, generosity, contentment, renunciation. I could, but I don't have to, right? That's like liberating, to be able to renounce something. I could take that thing I like. Thea left her glasses here. I could keep the glasses, but I don't have to. We see things we like. Oh, it's so nice not to have to take it or have it. In Buddhism, we call it mudita, appreciative joy. We see somebody with a nice car. Oh, but I don't need it. That's even better than having it. It is actually. To touch that place in my heart where I don't need that to be happy is a more refined, beautiful happiness than needing to have it. Needing to have something is not happiness. It's stressful to need to have something. I was talking to Thea and John, I'd really like the perfect cabin on the south shore, the north shore of Lake Superior, close to where I live. It's probably not going to happen. And I don't think it would actually make me happy. It'd just be a lot of work and a lot of stresses. And then I'd feel obliged to share it with people. And then I'd be stressed about if they're going to take care of it in the way I want it taken care of, right? Just burn all the wood and not cut more, things like that. Leave a mess so the critters come into the cabin. And so to be able to appreciate what, just on that ordinary level of what's beautiful, what's comfortable, what's, fun, but to not need to have it. That's the best. We're not a killjoy, like, oh, I can't do that because I'll get addicted or something like that. If good stuff comes our way, and someone hands me a delicious bowl of ice cream and nobody's being harmed, I'll probably eat it and I'll enjoy it. But it's really nice to know that there's ice cream and to not need it to be happy and this is like that way of relating with non-greed is not about not appreciating pleasure. It's about a non-dependence. My happiness isn't dependent on pleasure. But pleasure is still pleasure. I know the difference between pleasure and pain. But I prefer the happiness of contentedness and non-dependence on pleasure. It's just a better way to go through life. And it's the same thing with things that scare us and things that trigger our anger. It's not that I don't feel the pain of loss or don't feel the sting of betrayal, right? But it's like needing revenge, needing that other person to hurt, needing to get even. It's like, it's so nice not to have to condemn people who I experience as, being obnoxious or setting terrible things in motion, like some of our politicians or whatever. I can still know the difference. I can still have an opinion about like how our country should be governed or how my life should be governed. But to carry that weight of resentment and condemnation, Like, it's so nice not to have to drag that weight around, to have to hate somebody just because they have different views or different opinions. Doesn't mean that I won't vote against them or won't try to change the world. Actually, will be more effective as a change agent, not hating. Sometimes people, and we'll have some time after some announcements for some Q&A, and people will ask, like, but I need the anger to be motivated. But have you actually checked that out directly in your experience? Like, is there another motivation other than anger to do what needs to be done in your life and in our world? Like, can't compassion be a powerful motivation to get involved, whether we're doing it locally in our own life or in our families, in our local communities, in the wider world, wherever? So this is the territory, and this is the powerful place to bring awareness, mindful awareness. It's not when we're doing our daily sitting time, it's so that we can practice the 18 or 20 hours when we're awake. It really fuels or supports the moral sensitivity. It's as if this quiet, trustworthy voice is simply, honestly saying to us, so how's this working for you? What's this setting in motion? What kind of heart are you setting in motion for yourself? And is that the kind of heart you want when you're dying or when you're with somebody you love who's dying or struggling or any kind of time? Is that the kind of mind, heart you want to set in motion? Is that the kind of world you want to set in motion? And like the Buddha says, we feel it in the present, we feel it down the road. It's like when we're relating in a wholesome way, it's good in the beginning, middle, and end. We don't have to wait to the end to know whether it feels right. It really is just a matter of sensing cause and effect. And it is the primary benefit of stabilizing the stabilization and continuity of present moment awareness. Being interested in the present moment is primarily about sensing what's skillful and unskillful here and all around us. But it's not about judging those around us. It's about knowing everything matters. Everybody is laying stuff down. This crazy, messy world where there's so much suffering just didn't happen randomly. It got set in motion. So the greediness and the hatefulness and the disconnected or deludedness, that is the natural result of what's been set in motion. So what are we going to do about that? Well, let's set something else in motion for our own well-being and for the well-being of others. So we're going to take a little pause, hear a little bit about what's coming up. Thea will come back up, and then we'll have 10 or 15 minutes for some discussion, Q&A for both those of you online and those of you here in the room.